of measurements tonight. And what we're going to read, there are two basic schools of thought. Number one, there's a school of thought is this cannot be literal. It can't be. This is all symbolic. It means something else. And the second school of thought, which I'm a student of, is that this is literal. And that this will actually take place. It hasn't happened yet. Nothing like this has ever existed, ever. And so this is not Solomon's temple. This is not Herod's temple. This is some future structure that, as of yet, there's not even room for it to be built over there right now. This thing is monster. It's huge. And so the last 8 chapters of the book of Ezekiel, you remember the first 39 chapters, they're in Kibar. You know, the fugitives, the refugees are there. And we've walked very carefully. I've tried to take us very carefully through all of these. And it's been about, you did this, and I've punished you, and you've sinned here, and da-da-da-da-da. Now, beginning in chapter 40, the Lord, He doesn't forget that, but He turns His attention to another area, and it is their future. Israel is going to be restored and given their entire land grant, which covers the Middle East. And the land grant given to each of the tribes, if you say, here's the top and the bottom of the land, and here are the sides of it, here's the way it goes. The land possessions are in strips, horizontal strips, and each tribe gets exactly the same amount. Now, again, there are some things that I'm not going to be able to answer. For instance, how are these tribes going to be separated out into their tribal identities again? They've intermingled, they've mixed. No Jew knows what his tribal heritage is. How's that going to be done? I don't know. I have no clue. Is it going to be done? Yes. That's God's business. So, the Lord knows exactly where their bloodlines separate and all of that. And so I'm not going to worry myself with questions that gender no answers, and that's definitely one of them. Jamie, had your hand up? I get tickled at these guys on TV. The guy says, you know, we thought we were German, and I wore lederhosen, and we did, you know, and I found out we're Swedish or Scotch or something, so he buy kilts. Yeah, now he's wearing kilts, and so we don't know about all that stuff. I think I'm kin to Matt Dillon. I think that does. Yep, yeah. I ain't letting that go. All right, look in chapter 40, verse number 1. The date of this is April the 19th, 573 BC. Okay? In the 25th year of our captivity. So here's a marker. We know that 25 years ago, today, these are specific days, 25 years ago, they were taken captive. In the beginning of the year, in the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year after the city was smitten. So we're talking about April the 19th, 573 BC. What happened 14 years ago? Jerusalem was attacked and destroyed. All right? And that took about a year and a half to complete that project, by the way. And so in the self-same day, the hand of the Lord was upon me and brought me thither. In the visions, and so He never leaves His home by the Kibar River. Okay, He's taken in a vision. God brought me into the land of Israel and set me upon a very high mountain. This is Mount Moriah, by which was the frame of a city on the south. And so He's come down from the north, because Babylon is north of Jerusalem. And in His mind, He comes to the north of Jerusalem, and He looks in front of Him, which is south, and He sees the outline of a city. All right? He brought me thither, and behold, there was a man whose appearance was like the appearance of brass, with a line of flax in his hand. Now, this is a measuring instrument, and it's like a rope. All right? And so this is a measuring rope. And in his other hand, he had a reed. Now, the rope was for measuring long distances. The reed was a stick that we're going to find out was 10.5 feet long. And so he's got a stick in his hand, and then he's got like this great big huge tape measure in his other hand. And so we're looking at finding some precise measurements about a building that he sees in his vision that is not really there. Okay? And the man said unto me, Son of man, behold, with thine eyes. All I want you to do is watch, and hear with thine ears, and set thine heart upon all that I will show thee. I don't want you to say a word. I'm not here to interrogate you. I'm not here to get your opinion. You just hush and listen. That I might show them unto thee, thou art thou brought thither. That's why you're here. Declare all that thou seest to the house of Israel. And so he was to absorb all this and then take it back, when he comes out of his vision. Now, and behold, a wall on the outside of the house, round about in the man's hand, a measuring reed of 6 cubits. Now, the cubits mentioned in the book of Ezekiel, specifically chapters 40 through 48, is called a royal cubit. Now, a standard cubit was from the elbow to the wrist. But now this is a royal cubit. There's an additional man's hand width, which is about 3 inches. So we're looking at about a 21-inch cubit here. And so the measuring reed of about 6 cubits long by the cubit and a hand breadth. So there was a cubit plus a hand breadth. We're looking at about 21 inches. So he measured the breadth of the building, 1 reed, and the height, 1 reed. So there was a wall all the way around. That's the first thing he saw was this exterior wall. It was 10 and a half feet tall. It's 10.5 feet wide. Pretty substantial wall. Then he came unto the gate which looketh toward the east. Now this is not the Golden Gate, but it's on that side that the Golden Gate is on now. And he went up the stairs thereof and measured the threshold of the gate, which was 1 reed broad, and the other threshold of the gate, which was 1 reed broad. Now, let me show you. Now, this is a model. This is just an artist rendition. I think it's pretty accurate. Nathan, would you mind turning the lights down for a minute? Maybe we can get a little better picture. All right, it's going to be a very modern structure. All right. So we've got, you notice 3 gates. You see those tall structures on the front and the left and the right? Well, what we're looking at, where the blue line goes in, would be a way of egress. You go in. That gate right there, that big, tall thing is a gate. That's the eastern gate. Now, you'll notice, if we've got east facing this way, which we do, left is north, right is south. And so we've got an eastern gate, a northern gate, a southern gate, but there is no gate on the west. There is... This is like a utility building, okay, that is behind the temple area. And so I'm not going to read all the measurements because, it gets mind-boggling. It really does, because there is such precision here. If this is symbolic, the symbols are never explained, which is one of the reasons that I don't think it is symbolic. Now, it's been 13 years since the Lord spoke through Ezekiel. And he did that in chapters 33 through 39. That was 13 years ago. The Lord has not spoken to these people through Ezekiel for 13 years. 14 years ago, they got news that the city of Jerusalem had been destroyed. And the moral and the spiritual spine of Israel has been broken. I do not understand the connection that these people had with the temple. I don't understand it. I don't think we as Gentiles can. But it would be, to give you a really poor example, if terrorists were to blow up the White House, the White House is the symbol of America, you know what I'm saying? And I'd hate to see that building destroyed. Well, multiply that by infinity and you get an idea of the connection and the interaction that these people had with that temple. And so the temple is gone. All the buildings have been either severely damaged or destroyed. we've just got smoking nails. I mean, the place has just been devastated. And here's the question. Are we, as a particular species of people, are we finished? Will there ever be another Jewish child grow up and have his home in Jerusalem? Will I ever have grandchildren? Will I ever see Jerusalem again? And so they were looking, and the thought was, we're finished as a race of people. We're done. And the Lord was like, no, you're not done. And I will tell you what you already know, Israel will never not exist. Now, I don't care what Syria does or says, or what Iran does or says, there will always be Israel, period. Now, chapters 40 through 48 are controversial, would be a good word for it. And theologians have disagreed on these measurements and the meaning of these measurements for centuries. I do not think this is a purely symbolic thing. I think we're looking at a brick and mortar building at some point in the future. Now, this is not a blueprint like God gave Moses for the tabernacle. This is not that, because this is already built. In the vision, you don't see workers chiseling out the stone. This is done, all right? How does it get there? Bible doesn't say. And so I don't know. I can't give you an answer on who built it. All I know is it's built. And very precise, very, very specific. And the chapter is comprised of architectural descriptions. It describes each of these gates. It describes the number of steps going up from these outside gates into the outer court, which was 7 steps. And it describes the guard chambers that are located inside there will be guard chambers inside these major gates right there. It describes and defines and measures every little part of this building. And it's kind of like a married couple going to the piece of property where they're going to build their house. You know, and the husband and wife are standing on their piece of property. They've just bought it. They've never built a house. It's their first house. And the wife is so excited. She's saying, my kitchen is going to be right here. This is where the kitchen is going to be. And I'm going to look out the kitchen window. Look at that little mountain. Oh, my goodness, the sun comes up in the morning. And the husband said, well, yes, that's going to be great. And my den, my man cave, is going to be over here. And that little river over, I'm going to be able to look out. I'm going to be working on my computer or what. And so they're looking out and they're dreaming about the day when their house is going to be reality. This is kind of what we're doing here in chapter 40. And it's just a time of hopeful promise for Israel. They have been kicked from pillar to post just about all their lives. And that's been the life of the Jew. They've been chased all over Europe. They've been kicked out of Rome. They've been kicked out of Israel. They've been chased all over. They've been murdered and slaughtered, and it's been an awful thing. And so it's kind of an amazing thing that there's even a living Jew left. But not only are they living, they're thriving. And only about 60% of Jews live in Israel tonight. And so they've still got a lot to come back home to. And I'm happy with this understanding that they will never be annihilated. I don't want them annihilated. There needs to be a Jew in this world, all right? And there's going to be. There's no question about that, regardless of what you hear on the news. And right now, the number one hater of Israel and probably the greatest threat to their safety is Iran. There's another country just south of Iran, Syria. And Syria is sort of Iran is the hand, and Syria is the glove. And so Iran has its hand all up in Syria, and they're arming the Syrians, and they're launching missile attacks from Syria because it's too far from Iran. But one day, the Bible says that nations like Syria and Iran are going to be destroyed. And I don't know when. I'm not sure exactly what is going to happen to bring that about. But I do know this, that the verbal promise God made to Jacob's family and to Abraham's family has yet to be fulfilled. They have never occupied the original land grant. Never. They've been given this little sliver. just this little, and the world's trying to get them to give that up, you know. But one day, their entire land grant is going to be given to them, but that has not happened as of yet. So chapters 40 through 48 describe this absolutely magnificent, incredibly beautiful, huge temple. They haven't had a temple since 70 A.D. Titus Vespasian destroyed it. And with that, he cut their heart out. And with that, there was no reason for them to stay in Jerusalem, even in Israel, specifically Judea. And so they scattered all over the world. There's nothing for them. That was the magnet that drew these people as a nation. And so we're looking at a future temple, which means it is yet prophetic. Now, some of the head-scratching facts about this, as I read through this, and just, Lord, what does this mean? You know, help me understand this, really. And some of the head-scratching things that I've discovered, the outer wall of Ezekiel's temple here in chapters 40 through 48, and what the whole section does, it deals with not only the building, but the services. All chapters 40 and 48 do. It's going to be a commentary on the services of this new temple, how they do it, what they do, how they take care of it, who's going to do this, and where they're going to hang that, and so it's going to be a completely different deal than we've gone through so far. Number one, the outer wall of Ezekiel's temple is 6 times as large as the old temple. 6 times as large. It's big. From what I've read and tried to research out, the precinct that you're looking at right there is 1 mile square. Well, it'll be through the millennium. Okay, then in heaven, Revelation 21:22 says there is no temple there, because Jesus and the Father will be the temple there. So this is a temporary thing. Glad you brought that up, Sister Charlotte. So for the temple square, right now we're looking at an area that is about as large as the city of Jerusalem. And so there are going to have to be some topographical changes to accommodate this building, and there will be there are going to have to be some mountains that are going to be leveled, and some valleys. You know how Jerusalem is built. It's built on this plateau. You got these valleys on either side, and it comes up way high, and there's this flat top area, and Jerusalem's up here. And so from anywhere in the Bible, you go up to Jerusalem, literally. And so one day, there's going to have to be a filling in of these valleys and a leveling of this property to accommodate this thing. Now, the $64,000 question probably in your mind is this. Why does there have to be a temple? Jesus is being crucified. The perfect sacrifice has been offered. Why a temple? And why sacrifices? There will be blood sacrifices in this temple. And the question is, why? And so that's sort of been the hurdle that I've been looking to climb over, and I feel comfortable in my spirit. I've read all kinds of answers, and you've done this before, I'm sure, in your study. You read something, you're like, like that, and I think I did that. But you know, as I studied, it was kind of like, oh, okay, and it was just like the Lord seeded that in my spirit. Yes, this is as close as I'm going to get, you know, for you anyway. And yes.
I can't answer either question, but the first one makes me think that because we are so faithful, we need reminding constantly about God and how to approach and how to behave and where to keep Him in our lives. This would certainly be a huge reminder.
Be a reminder. I accept the position that this is a literal building. Ezekiel is given a tour. He's given this vision of an already standing building there, and there are at least 4 other prophets, and we're gonna spend some time looking at some other tie-in verses tonight. But there are at least 4 other prophets that join Ezekiel in affirming a reestablishment of a sacrificial system. Look in the book of Isaiah. Back up a couple of books, and let's look in Isaiah chapter 56. As Isaiah 56, verse number 7. We're talking about millennial times. Even them will I bring to my holy mountain, that's Jerusalem, and make them joyful in my house of prayer, that's a temple. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices shall be accepted upon mine altar. So there will be an altar. For mine house shall be called an house of prayer for the Jews, for all people. Okay? Now, look at chapter 66. In chapter 66, look at verse number 20. Again, millennial time here. And they shall bring all your brethren for an offering unto the Lord, out of all nations, upon horses, and in chariots, and in litters, and upon mules, and upon swift beasts. In other words, every contemporary method of transportation is going to take people to the city of Jerusalem, to my holy mountain, Jerusalem, saith the Lord, the children of Israel bring an offering in a clean vessel into the house of the Lord. Now, let me stop here and say, we are not talking about hereditary Jews. Okay? You understand that the promise was not given to the seeds as of many, not talking about just the Jewish lineage. Did you know that if you are a Christian, you're a Jew? You are a Jew. Now, the Jew was a picture of a Christian. All right, he was circumcised, but just the males on the 8th day of his life. And as a Christian, we're also circumcised, but not with a circumcision made with hands, but the circumcision of the heart. See, we've had our sin nature cut away. Oh, now, the picture is complete in that they would take that little piece of foreskin off that little boy on day 8, which they did because his vitamin K rate was higher on day 8 than any other day to keep him from bleeding to death. And so they would take that little piece of skin, put it in a linen cloth, and burn it, never to be seen again. And so as Christians, our sin nature has been cut away through faith in Jesus Christ. You will never deal with that again. Now, we do commit sin. We've already talked about that. But we are Jews. And so what will this temple be open for? Every believer. Okay? All right, now look at 66. We read, look at verse 21. And I will also take of them for priests and for Levites, saith the Lord. For as the new heavens and the new earth, which I will make, shall remain before me, saith the Lord, so shall your seed and your name remain. And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, so there's going to be an observance of the new moons, and from one Sabbath to another, there's going to be a recognition of the Sabbaths, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith the Lord. All right, now look in Jeremiah chapter 33. Jeremiah 33. And look at verse 18, I believe it is, 33:18. Let me get over there to it. Actually, we'll start with 16. In those days shall Judah be saved, and Jerusalem shall dwell safely, and this is the name whereof she shall be called, the Lord our righteousness. For thus saith the Lord, David shall never want a man to sit upon the throne of the house of Israel, neither shall the priest the Levites, want a man before me to offer burnt offerings and to kindle meat offerings and to do sacrifice continually. Now, this is in the millennium. Now, look at Zechariah. Almost to the end of the book. Zechariah chapter 14. 16. Can y'all hear this squeaking? Yeah, I guess it's time to do something with that. All right, Zechariah 14:16. And it shall come to pass that every one that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King. And so nations will live in their national boundaries, and once a year, the whole earth is going to come up to worship the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. Now, there were 7 feasts in Israel's agricultural calendar. Not all of them are going to be observed, but one of them that's going to be observed is this Feast of Tabernacles. And it shall be that whosoever will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain. All right? Now, there will be lost people on the earth during the millennium. All right? Scripture says that Jesus will rule with a rod of iron, which means there will be judicial authority given to him. Well, he has it. And this judicial authority is going to be pretty stout. You will do the right thing. Well, I don't want to do the right thing. You'll have no choice. All right? You will do the right thing. And if the family of Egypt go not up and come not, that have no rain, there shall be the plague wherewith the Lord will smite the heathen that come not up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. And so we go on and on and on about those nations that do not come, don't send at least representatives to come. And look in the book of Malachi, chapter 3. Malachi 3, verse number 3. Malachi 3:3. He shall sit as a refiner and purifier of silver, and he shall purify the sons of Levi, and purge them as gold and silver, that they may offer unto the Lord an offering in righteousness. Then shall the offering of Judah and Jerusalem be pleasant unto the Lord, as in the days of old, like they used to do back during the old Levitical system, and as in former years. And so we're looking at a new sacrificial system, and it's going to be for basically the same reason. Now, you're aware that no sacrifice in the Old Testament atoned for sin. That wasn't the purpose of it. It did not remit sin. It was a remembrance of sin. So every time you went to the temple and you took one of your sheep, one of your goats, one of your animals, because you did something that violated the law, one of the 613 principles of the Old Testament law, that was a reminder, man, I should have done that. Sin's expensive, folks. It's expensive. And so they would lose an animal over this. And so then when they did the yearly Day of Atonement, which atoned for the sins of everybody in the country, it wasn't to atone for sin. It was a reminder. We're sinful. How do we know? Well, look what the priest is doing. You know, he's cutting. There were a couple of goats that were killed that day. And so nothing ever remitted sin. Then Jesus comes, remits it. And so these people were looking forward to, and every Jew that was saved understood this is a picture of our Messiah. Now, the Jew that thought this goat is my Messiah and this is how I'm saved was not saved, at least at that point in his life, maybe some future time. But those Jews that understood this lamb, this goat, this pigeon, it's a picture of our Messiah that's coming to die for us. That was your saved Jew. Now, we're on the other side of Calvary. And so we don't look forward to the perfect sacrifice. We look back on the perfect sacrifice. And so it is going to be a memorial. And so what we're looking at they've got cleaning tables in this place. This is going to have electricity. It's going to have electric lights. It's going to have running water. It's going to have all the amenities that modern buildings have. And there will be kitchens in this thing. And in these kitchens, this will be where this meat is prepared. But it is not going to be for the purpose of atoning sin. Israel understood, at least the saved Jews understood, the blood of bulls and goats doesn't save anybody. All right, now, and so these sacrifices will not be a return to this old covenant system, because the law has been fulfilled forever. Look in the book of Romans chapter 6. Romans 6, beginning with verse 14. For sin shall not have dominion over you, for you are not under the law, but under grace. Verse 15. What then? Shall we sin because we're not under the law, but under grace? God forbid. So the law was not destroyed. The law was fulfilled in the person of Christ. And you'll read then, look at 1 Corinthians chapter 9. 1 Corinthians 9 and verse 20. And unto the Lord I became as a Jew, that I might gain the Jews. To them that are under the law, as under the law, that I might gain them that are under the law. To them that are without law, as without law, being not without law to God, but under the law to Christ, that I might gain them that are without law. So not everybody was under this legal system. Now, Sister Charlotte asked a while ago, how long will this thing be in place? And the millennium, the word millennium is a Latin word, mille-annum. Millimeter is a measurement. Annum means year. And so mille is 1,000. Annum is annual, or 1,000 annuals. That's a 1,000-year period. And there are a lot of people, and I've talked with some of them, that do not believe in what we understand to be a millennium. But here's what's going to happen. Jesus is going to come, and without going through all of the details of it, God himself is going to live in the city of Jerusalem in the person of Jesus Christ. This is his home. A temple is nothing more than a place on earth. The earth is under the curse of sin. God cannot live, he cannot dwell in a place where there's sin. And so he carved out this place called the tabernacle. And they cleansed it. They purified it with water and with offerings and sacrifices. And the priest had to sanctify themselves with these things. They had to cleanse it. All right? And so the Lord met with them. He met with them on the Ark of the Covenant between the cherubims. And so that was a temporary thing. And then Solomon builds a temple. That was God's house. Literally. Now we can't say that today. This is not the house of God. Don't say that. That's an Old Testament phrase. It was accurate then, but it is not accurate now. And so Solomon built a temple. That was God's apartment. That's where the Lord met with them. But he would come and go. It was not a permanent house. And then Herod built his famous temple in the city of Jerusalem, and the Lord met with him there. And you remember when we were early in the book where the glory of the Lord departed from the temple? And Ezekiel stood and watched it, and it went out the east gate. You remember that? It just leaves. The Lord sent him through. I will not live in a filthy apartment. And so he left. Now, what we're going to find in chapters 40 through 48, guess who comes back? This is going to be cleansed. How are they going to do that? They're going to offer sacrifices. They're going to cleanse this ritually and symbolically. This will be cleansed because he wants his people to know, I am holy and I do not live in dirty places. And so the best way to impress that on them, the only way to impress that on them, is to go through this cleansing again. And Ezekiel sees the glory of the Lord coming back, and goes through this eastern gate right up there, the one in front. He goes into the eastern gate, moves into this magnificent new mansion that they have built for the Lord to live in. And so this is going to be his house for 1,000 annuals, or for 1,000 years. And the new covenant is going to become the new ruling jurisdiction. God himself will be the benevolent dictator, which is the best form of government in the world. Now that sounds a little scary because I don't know a benevolent dictator. Hitler wasn't one, and there are none among the humankind, these benevolent dictators, but when you've got a person who is holy and cannot sin, he can be my dictator all day long because he cannot do wrong. It's not that he's up in heaven going, I will not slap Jim. I will, it's not that he's so self-disciplined. He doesn't do wrong by virtue of his nature. And I don't know anybody like that because we are all capable of doing something really, really dumb. And so this new covenant is going to be the ruling jurisdiction. Look in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 29. Deuteronomy 29. Pardon? 29, if I can get there. 29, and look at verse 4. The Lord hath not given you a heart to perceive, and eyes to see, and ears to hear unto this day. Let me read some other verses here to tie this in. Look in chapter 30, verse number 6. And the Lord thy God will circumcise thine heart. Now this is in the Old Testament under the law. The Lord never just wanted their physical obedience. He always wanted their heart. That's always been His target, always been His desire. And the heart of thy seed, their children, to love the Lord thy God with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. They've never done that. The Jew has never done that as a nation completely. Look in Isaiah chapter 59. So what is the Lord trying to do? Well, what's He going to do? He's going to create within Israel a heart of worship that we will be a part of, and love for the Lord. In Isaiah, what is it? Did I say 59? Yeah, 59. Well, Bible pages are so thin. Isaiah 59. Look at verse number 20. And the Redeemer shall come to Zion, and unto them that turn from transgression in Jacob, saith the Lord. As for me, this is my covenant with them, saith the Lord. My spirit that is upon thee, and my words which I have put in thy mouth, shall not depart out of thy mouth, nor out of the mouth of thy seed, nor out of the mouth of thy seed, saith the Lord, from henceforth and forever. And so we're talking about Israel being a forever people. But the definition of Jew has expanded since the New Testament. And so I'm just telling you, you and I are the Jew that God actually set out to create. All right, He's been given our hearts. We've been circumcised not in our flesh. That's got nothing to do with your salvation, but in the heart, which means that the old man's been cut away. Now look at Jeremiah chapter 31. Jeremiah 31. Behold, the days will come, saith the Lord, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt. It's going to be completely different. That was the old covenant that we refer to as the Old Testament, which my covenant they break. Although I was an husband to them, saith the Lord, but this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my law into their inward parts. Now, where was the law of Moses? It was on stone tablets. All right? Well, there's going to be a change of location here. He's going to put it in their inward parts, write it in their hearts, and will be their God, and they shall be my people. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, Know the Lord, for they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them. In other words, there's going to be a time when soul winning not going to be necessary anymore. Witnessing to your neighbor. Well, why? Because he already knows the Lord. Now we're not obviously in that situation. And so there's not going to be a return to the old covenant. There's going to be this new covenant put in place, and the whole earth. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the earth being one big continuous worship service. Can you imagine what it would be like to go up to Jerusalem with all the nations of the earth? Could you imagine a former Muslim nation walking through the streets of Jerusalem, praising the Lord, recognizing Jesus Christ as their Redeemer? This change it's on the way, and we're going to be seeing that I think pretty shortly. Now, the millennial temple is going to contain services of Levitical optics. I mean, there are going to be animals that are going to be sacrificed in this thing, and there will be a new priestly order of the sons of Zadok, and they're going to serve in the temple. Look in chapter 40, back into Ezekiel now. Chapter 40, look at verse 46. 46. And the chamber whose prospect is toward the north is for the priest. And so there's an apartment complex, a dormitory for the priest. The keepers of the charge of the altar, these are the sons of Zadok. Now this guy was lineally descended from Aaron, and so he is in the priestly line among the sons of Levi, which come near to the Lord to minister unto him. So he measured the court 100 cubits long and 100 cubits broad, foursquare in the altar that was before the house. 100 cubits. 21 inches times 100 is how? That's 2,100? 2,100 cubits at 21 inches. What would that be footage-wise? Somebody got a calculator? Would that be right? Somebody help me out here. 21 inches? Yeah. Are we doing that right? It's what? 2,100 feet. Well, it's 21 inches.
2,100 times 21 inches is 44,100 inches divided by 12 is 3,675 feet.
Okay, it's big. Yeah, okay, it's big. Now, let me tell you some things that the new millennial temple will include. All right. Number one, new moons and Sabbaths and nearly all of the appointed feasts. Look in chapter 44 of Ezekiel. Chapter 44, verse 24. 44:24. And in the controversy they shall stand in judgment, and they shall judge it according to my judgments, and they shall keep my laws and my statutes, all mine assemblies, and they shall hallow my Sabbaths. And so there will be the Sabbath observance in this new millennial temple. Look at chapter 45, verse number 17. 45:17, and it shall be the prince's part to give burnt offerings and meat offerings and drink offerings in the feasts and in the new moons and in the Sabbaths and all solemnities of the house of Israel. He shall prepare the sin offering and the meat offering and the burnt offering and the peace offerings to make reconciliation for the house of Israel. Now, this is not for salvation. Okay, these are memorials, and it is also the ritual purification of this area, so the Lord will stay in the temple, and He will, because this is going to be cleaned. There will be a daily offering. In the Old Testament, they did the morning oblation, the evening oblation. Look at chapter 46 and verse 13. 46:13. Thou shalt daily prepare a burnt offering unto the Lord of a lamb of the first year without blemish, and thou shalt prepare it every morning. And thou shalt prepare a meat offering for it every morning, the sixth part of an ephah, and the third part of an hin of oil to temper with the fine flour, a meat offering continually by a perpetual ordinance unto the Lord. And they shall prepare the lamb, and the meat offering, and the oil every morning for a continual burnt offering. So there will be daily offerings. Now, what will these offerings be for? Will they be to atone for the sin of Israel? No. What will it be for? It will be, like you said a while ago, a very visual, striking, dramatic demonstration of the Lamb of God who died to take away the sin of the world. Now keep in mind that there will still be lost people in the world. What an evangelical opportunity. Don't you know that there are going to be people asking these Jews, what is this all about? There's an open door, all right, to share the gospel with these people. There will be burnt offerings, grain offerings, libation, which is a drink offering, blood sacrifices. Look in chapter 43, verse number 20. 43:20. Thou shalt take of the blood thereof, and put it on the four horns of it, and on the four corners of the settle, and upon the border round about. Thus thou shalt cleanse it and purge it. Now this blood is not for saving anybody. It is to ritually purify the altar, so what goes on that altar, the Lord can accept and be pleased with it. This is how perfect God is. Even in His perfection, even in His living in this fabulous mansion, the very picture of purification has got to be carried out, so that it is impressed on people, Jew and Gentile alike. This God means business. You know, this is the way He has set this up for the purification of the altar. And yes, absolutely. Right? He does. Yeah, there's a mention in there. I'm not sure, again, I understand exactly what that's talking about, but there will be a Zadokite priesthood, according to chapter 40. The Levitical priesthood, there will be Levitical priests, and their obligation is going to be to kill the sacrifice. There was a very particular way you had to kill these animals. You had to do it with a knife in one swoop. You had to cut his jugular veins. And if you had to go back and do it again, they would throw him away. Not the priest, but they'd throw the animal away. You had to know exactly how to terminate these animals with one swoop, and so these guys are going to be doing that. And so the purpose then of a temple on a sin-cursed earth throughout Scripture was to establish this location for the presence of God that reveals through these rituals God's great holiness and His majesty. And you don't just walk into the building and say, hey, Lord, I'm here. You don't bring your filth and your trash and your rubbish and your adulteries and your thieveries and you don't bring that. You don't do that. And just hope the Lord, we're okay, right? No, we're not. We're not. And so this was all to cleanse this area. And Israel was given this instruction to build the only place on earth in the Old Testament where God would dwell personally. Now, in the Garden of Eden, there was no tabernacle. There was no temple in the Garden of Eden, because everywhere in the Garden of Eden was holy. There was no sin there yet. And so before Adam and Eve committed sin, wherever they went was holy. There was no sin in the world. And so the Lord could meet with them and walk around and explain it. Oh, by the way, this is an orange tree. And you can peel this open and, and I don't know if the Lord ate an orange with it. I have no clue. All I know is that everywhere was acceptable because everywhere was holy. Then sin changed everything. Sin ruined the ideal, ruined the perfection of Eden. And so now the Lord, it's like, I will dwell with you. I will live with you, but I want a clean place. I want a clean place. I want a building that it's not used to store your lawnmower. It's not used for anything else. This is where I will live, and you will cleanse it and purify it according to these specifications. And when they did, the Lord met them there. And when they didn't do that, like we have read in the book of Ezekiel, when they brought all this, these idolatrous offerings into the area, even on the very precinct of the temple, the Lord just left. He said, "This is what you want. then I'm leaving. And he left out of that east gate and has not been back since. Nathan, you have your hand up. Let me see. All right, is it the same? Yeah, it's a little, yeah, it's a little different. Yeah, it's a little different. But the details in chapters 40 through 48, and I wanted to spend a little time just giving you the backstory of what we're going to be looking at and why. They will establish a sacrificial system. I can't deny that. It can't be denied. We've read verse after verse after verse. They're going to do the blood and the animals and all of that. Like Sandy said earlier, it is a reminder. It is a memorial. This is what your Savior did. This is what the Messiah has done. And I think it's going to be a very effective witnessing tool because it's going to create a lot of curiosity because there will be lost people there. And they're going to have an opportunity to hear the gospel. And look in Revelation 21. Getting ready to wrap this up. Yeah. Revelation 21. Look at verse number 22. And I saw no temple therein. For the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are the temple of it. There's going to come a time when there will be no need for a unique area that is ritually purified for the Lord could put his feet in and dwell. There's going to come a time when, again, everywhere is going to be holy. And that obviously is going to be in the New Jerusalem. And but no sacrifice in the Old Testament ever made atonement for the souls of Israel. Never. It was a reminder. It was like, the scab nearly healed up, and then you come to the end. Every 360 days this happened. And the priest would come, he'd tear off that scab. Oh, yeah, I remember that now. And so it was just a reminder. But when Jesus died, it was remission. He put sin in remission. He took care of our sin forever. And this is going to look back and just be a reminder. Just like you say, well, do we do anything like that today? Yes. Lord's Supper. There are people that believe that the elements of the Lord's Supper save you. They call that transubstantiation. What is the Lord's Supper? It's a reminder. It's just a reminder. This is what he did. This is how he did it. His body, he was beaten, he was bruised, he was cut to pieces. And so we eat that bread, and then we drink that grape juice. And it's a reminder. And so did you know that we, in the first century, the Roman citizens referred to us as cannibals? Because part of the Christian message was that, we eat the body and drink the blood of the Lord Jesus Christ. And we were called cannibals because of that. Right. And so there's always been this gross misunderstanding of the very basics of Christianity. And so that's chapter 40. And so we probably will scoot through the rest of it pretty quickly because of it's going to be talking basically about the same thing. And this really elaborate, wonderful, we're going to get to be involved in things they did in the old. You're going to see it. We're going to be able to witness those things, which I think is pretty neat. Yes, sir.
I don't have to answer right now, but my question, is this the third or fourth temple?
This will be fourth.
So the one that's built in the tribulation for the evening oblation start will be destroyed.
Looks that way. Yeah.
People that will be saved during the millennial, are these people that were born during the tribulation?
Some.
And then others will be people that never had anyone to explain salvation to them?
There will have to be people that will go into the millennium that were born. It's like I was born in the 20th century, but I've lived into the 21st century. So there will be a carryover of people, but there will be millions born during that 1,000-year period. Yeah.
Human beings
Exactly. And they'll have a sin nature just like everybody else. They'll hear they'll see the gospel, with what we're looking at right here. Because this is don't you think this is not going to be on the news every day? If Donald Trump can't raise his eyebrow without somebody saying he should have done the other eyebrow and not that one, when these priests start cutting the throats of cute little lamb, the PETA group's going to go nuts, And I'm a member of PETA, the People Eating Tasty Animals. That's the one I remember. And matter of fact, we went to an animal rights barbecue this last weekend.